All right, so let me come back to studio and speak to Maurice Odhiambo, who's the president of the National Civil Society Congress. And thank you so much for joining us on News Center. So I'll begin asking you the same question that we're asking our viewers about the scrapping, the proposal to scrap off the Senate. Is it called for?
Absolutely not. I think maybe we should start this debate where it ought to start. That there have always been these moves to undermine devolution. These moves started very early, immediately after the Constitution was passed. If we can all remember, in 2013, when the new government was set up, we had a very huge Ministry of Devolution and Planning, and many of us then warned that this could be the beginning of moves to actually say that devolution is not working.
Right.
Because that basically was taking us back to the previous system, where we had a humongous Ministry of Local Government, and the local government units were basically sort of like departments of that ministry. So the thinking to me from 2013 seems to have been the same. Secondly, it's not the first time that these proposals are being put on the table. Perhaps the only surprising thing is the person involved now, the Reverend Mutava Musimi, who seems to have changed his mind about a lot of the things that he was fighting for when he was not a member of parliament. You remember, I think it is a former member of parliament, Kioni, if I'm not mistaken, who I think had even drafted a bill on scrapping of the Senate. So it's nothing new. It's something that has been there for a while. The thing for me that matters now is whether this anti-devolution camp, now personified by Mutava Musimi and the others, will succeed.
But is it really a camp? Is it really a wrong move? Because here they're talking about reducing the wage bill right now. That is really crazy. You saw the statistics. Just like half of the country's GDP caters just to 2% of the population.
Yeah, that was going to be my number 3 point. Every time this debate has come around, it has been couched under something else. Back then, the reasoning was that we needed a strong Ministry of Devolution to make sure that implementation of devolution actually happens.
Right.
Only that we ended up, at that time, even undermining the work of the Transition Authority, which was supposed to devolve functions and all that. So again, I am not surprised that right now the cushion for this is the whole issue of wage bill. It's a very emotional issue. Whenever these statistics are churned out, then it is very easy for Kenyans to believe that narrative. But see, the issue is we don't have a serious debate on the wage bill. It comes up once in a while, and
so it's
then it goes away.
It's not really it doesn't have any backing.
Precisely,
right.
Which tells me that is not the debate. That's not the debate. This is just a cover so that people buy into this new idea that is being floated around.
And I'll want to hear what you think the debate really is. What is the backstory of all this? But hold your thought for now. And I want us to engage Makueni's Senator, Mutula Kilonzo, who's joining us by way of phone. He is in Mombasa for this legislative summit. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us on News Center. First things first, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this new proposal to scrap off the Senate.
First, I want to say that I agree with my good friend Otiende Amolo. That proposal, I'm not quite sure what their thinking is, but I'm sorry to say that there's no thinking to it. There's nowhere in the world where you would have a devolved system of government and then you scrape off, for example, the Senate that is supposed to be a go-between between the executive and the devolved units. Now, it's possible that some people are suffering from the old mentality, where power is sweet and it's sweeter when it's concentrated. When somebody in 2017 says that the president should appoint 47 governors, you begin to think that in 2010 that person was left in Egypt while all of us went to Canaan. So that proposal will not work. And I want to say very clearly in my mind that you cannot scrape off that component of devolution that involves the Senate without creating a revolution in Kenya. If the argument about wage bill is the premise for this, I can tell you it does not make any logical sense. Why? Because at national government structure, the 47 or other ministries that were existing in the Grand Coalition government are still in existence to date. While we have devolved the function of health in its entirety, they say 93%, the budget for the national government has increased tremendously since 2013, despite our protests. So therefore, let me say this, that Reverend Musimi used to be my pastor for this crusade. I'm not with him. I don't agree.
What really do you think is the motive behind this then?
Sorry?
What really is the motive from where you sit? What do you think is the motive behind this conversation?
I think it's populist. It's a populist argument because I'm not sure who he consulted. Because if he consulted at county level, nobody would agree to that position. And therefore, I don't think it's a motive. I think Mutava Musimi is looking for something to increase the conversation. Alternatively, it's a conversation that is supposed to camouflage something that we should be discussing. This is not an issue, Betty, on the table. You cannot discuss this as an issue at national level. We should dismiss it and talk about other things. If it's wage bill, let's go to the problems of wage bill and address those issues at that point.
You are attending the second annual summit for senators. What can you say really, is the impact of senators in this country today? Have we felt the power of the Senate?
Yes, a lot of people have not realized what Senate has managed to do in terms of making sure that the devolved system of government is working. Quietly, people don't realize that the executive has been fighting devolution and equally the Senate through many issues. There has been a consistent clawback. We call it clawback, and Atiende Amolo can explain to you in detail that everything we have given to devolved government, they try and get it back through another method. There are so many other levels, and he has talked about transitional authority. They started fighting transitional authority at the beginning of devolution. So therefore, devolution became stillborn at some point, so that you couldn't move forward, you couldn't move backward. They have set up some other structures that, in essence, are trying to make sure that governors and the devolved system of government is suppressed. What we have not done, and the Senate is fighting for, and which we must do, and Christine Lagarde mentioned it when she was here, IMF director, is something called complete fiscal devolution. Means that all the resources must follow the function under Article 187 of the Constitution. So that is what the Senate has been doing. And we have been fought left, right, and center by through the executive, whether it's legislature, National Assembly, but we have survived, and devolution will survive. And people might not realize the gains of having a Senate. But one of the things that I must say that we have managed to do is to exercise the ghost of the independence, where the first Senate was abolished after independence.
All right, before I let you go, let's also talk about the fact that, right now, and especially as we head to the August 8th elections, you have very many senators who are coming out and saying that now they want to go for the governor's position. You've said that through the Senate, we've been able to see quite an impact, from the House. But why is it then that, there's like a chase for more power, hunger for more power?
That question I've answered so many times, but I can't answer for the people who want to become governors. Everybody wants to become relevant in their own sphere of life. And if senators think, now that they have seen the structure of devolution and think they can do better than the governors who are in place, they have every right to do so. Just the same way governors have every right to become senators or vice versa and any other person. I don't think we should vilify the institution simply because there are 20 senators who want to become governors. I think that wish is legitimate. We must, this country, in our democracy, say all dreams are valid. There are senators, nominated senators who want to become members of parliament. Nobody says anything. There are the nominated senator who wants to become an MCA. Nobody says anything. Others are retiring to do other things. Nobody has said a thing. The fact that somebody thinks that they can offer their skills and services at the county level through being a chief executive is a good thing. That it is attracting more people. That doesn't mean that at Senate level there are no people who want to become senators.
All right, thank you very much, Mutula Kilonzo, there speaking to us from Mombasa by way of phone. Of course, talking to us about quite a number of issues, including that proposal to scrap off the Senate. And we will be speaking to other leaders who are at the Legislative Summit in Mombasa, and we'll be getting to hear more of their reactions to this. All right, let's continue with our conversation here in studio. And I asked the Senator a question that I want to put across to you. Yeah. Looking at the assessment of what the Senate has been able to achieve, is it something that you can say we felt?
Devolution. When there was a lot of, the transition authority, for example, was being fought by the executive, and at that point I remember, the Commission for Implementation of the Constitution had come together with the Ministry of Devolution and actually petitioned for the Transition Authority to be done away with. Unfortunately, the senators were basically not there. The governors didn't even know where to belong in that whole debate. So we, in terms of protecting devolution, no, the Senate has not performed. The governors have been at sea. As a body, they have been unable to actually say where their strategic interests lie. So at some point, you see them doing things that actually support devolution. Other times, they seem to be doing things that they don't even understand. A good example would be the whole doctors' strike which ended recently. I'll say, and I would differ there with the senator. When it comes to protecting devolution, the Senate has not done much, and it has been at sea like all these other organs.
And why do you think so? Because during the devolution conference, governors were saying that, they gave reasons why they did not perform to the expectations of many Kenyans. They said that the relationship between the county governments and the national government sometimes was not always rosy. Issues to do with funding, disbursement of funds to the counties. What is the Senate's excuse then?
The Senate has no excuse. The only problem, and you mentioned it, this actually struggle for power. So very quickly in 2013, after the Senate was put in place and after governors were sworn in, senators began to see that many of them actually said, we made a mistake.
Right.
That is where the power and the money is. Yes, yeah. So very early in the life of the Senate, they had already decided that, if you want money and power, go become a governor. So that decision had already been done. So for the bigger part of the life of the Senate, actually this has been conflict of interest. Even when they are sitting as committees, summoning governors, you can see that they are serving their own personal interests. And it has nothing to do with accountability as they would want us to see.
So that started off from very early on?
It started from a few months into the life of the Senate. They had already decided that we are in the wrong place.
But the senator there is saying that it's the right of anybody to contest for any seat.
It is okay. It's only that the history of how this thing has worked out leaves a lot to be desired. Because obviously you can see obvious conflict of interest. If I've declared that I want to run in a certain as governor, and then when we are summoning the governor from that county, I am the one with the dossiers, and I cannot even have the integrity to excuse myself from that debate because you really want to pin down this guy because he's your opponent. So to that extent, then they have not worked very well. When it comes to legislation, let me just remind you one thing. A couple of years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, they came up with these so-called county development boards. So they legislated for themselves a situation where they would go and now chair those county boards, and then the governors would be reduced to secretaries. You see, again, a very good example of conflict of interest. Because they simply wanted to have a presence there, but not just a presence. They also wanted to be a direct boss to the governor, which is really unacceptable.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Maurice Odhiambo. He's the president of the National Civil Society Congress. Thank you for your insights. Let's wait and see. Maybe it's just going to be 1 or 2 senators who actually go for the governor position.
We will see.
We will see.
August is just around the corner.
140 days. All right, fine. So we want to continue with our coverage. But remember that we're asking you this morning if you support that proposal by the Budgets Committee to scrap off the Senate. You've heard views there of the senator and also my guests in studio. We'd like to hear yours. You can tweet me at Betty M. Kialo, use the hashtag NewsCenter, and I will be taking a look at your your responses. Let me just sample quite a number of them here. They're coming in so many. Keep letting Manuela, you say, Senate plays their constitutional role. It is unfortunate that the Senate have limited powers. That's just a bit of what Morris was talking about. Moving on, Samuel Ocheng, you say, no, I don't support such an initiative by MPs. Instead, we must slash the number of MPs because they are redundant. All right, interesting conversation there. Let's continue on. Keep tweeting me, hashtag News Center, or tweet me at Betty M. Kello. I'll be taking a look at your responses. All right. So